I would appraise this book actually at about $40,000.
Let me tell you, you are lucky.
You probably saved my job.
Well, you can thank me with some chocolate or something.
Picture a woman standing calmly under the fluorescent lights of a Las Vegas pawn shop, holding a 200-year-old book in gloved hands, while a camera crew waits for her verdict and a federal investigation quietly circles in the background. That is the story most people never got to see. For years, Rebecca Romney was the steady, articulate voice of authority every time something rare made of paper landed on the counter at Gold and Silver Pawn. She corrected forgers, humbled overconfident sellers, and became one of the most trusted faces in the history of Pawn Stars. Then, without warning, she disappeared from the show entirely. No farewell episode. No official statement. Just silence. What happened to her, and why the story behind her exit stayed buried for so long, is far stranger than most fans ever realized. Rebecca Romney was born in April 1985 in Phoenix, Arizona, and nothing about her early life suggested she would spend her career surrounded by first editions worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. As a teenager, she found old books tedious, and she pictured a very different future for herself, one built around philosophy and language rather than provenance and auction houses. She enrolled at Brigham Young University, where she studied philosophy and classical studies between 2003 and 2007. While her peers gravitated toward more conventional paths, Romney immersed herself in ancient texts, eventually working with Latin, ancient Greek, French, and Japanese alongside English. Her academic focus culminated in a thesis examining early fragments of Plato's Republic, a level of linguistic and historical rigor that would later prove essential in an entirely different profession, one she had not yet imagined for herself. That profession found her almost by accident. In 2007, shortly after graduating, Romney applied for what she believed was a general management position at Bowman Rare Books in Philadelphia. She realized during the interview that she had misread the posting entirely. The role was for a specialist in rare books, a field in which she had no formal training. Rather than walking away, she stayed, admitted her inexperience honestly, and was hired anyway on the strength of her language skills and her evident intellectual seriousness. Within a short time she was handling material of extraordinary historical weight, including Shakespeare folios, leaves connected to the Gutenberg Bible, and early printings of Isaac Newton's work. By 2010 she had been promoted to manage the company's Las Vegas gallery, and by 2013, at just 29 years old, she had become the youngest senior director in the firm's history, overseeing millions of dollars in annual sales. It was through this Las Vegas connection that Rick Harrison first came to know her, well before cameras were ever involved. The antiquarian world in Las Vegas was small, and their paths crossed through mutual acquaintances and a shared fascination with historical artifacts. When Harrison needed someone who could authenticate not just books but documents, signatures, and handwriting with real expertise, he reportedly reached out to her directly rather than relying on a casting process. Her first appearance on Pawn Stars came in 2011, during the show's fourth season, when she was asked to examine a stack of Civil War-era paperwork that included a supposedly valuable Confederate bond. Within minutes, she identified inconsistencies in the ink and printing that exposed a forged signature, dramatically reducing its value on camera. It was a quiet, methodical unmasking, and it set the tone for everything that followed. Over the next several years, Romney became the show's go-to expert whenever paper, ink, or old bindings entered the shop. She examined replicas of Columbus-era letters, an authentic broadside of the Declaration of Independence, and a first edition of Charles Darwin's On the Origin of Species that she valued at $75,000, correctly identifying its green cloth binding and period-accurate advertisements as markers of authenticity. She also debunked material that looked convincing but wasn't, including a fraudulent Shakespeare folio whose flawed paper aging and suspiciously clean ink gave away its true nature before it could cost the shop thousands. What distinguished her on screen wasn't just her knowledge but her composure. Whether she was revealing that an item was worth a fortune or worth almost nothing, she delivered the news with the same even, unhurried tone, never performing excitement or alarm for the cameras the way other experts sometimes did. Her reputation as the show's most reliable voice on printed history made her genuinely popular with viewers, and by the early 2010s she had become something of a fan favorite, particularly after an appraisal involving an early edition of Frankenstein drew significant attention online. But 2014 brought a moment that would quietly unravel the professional image she had built. A man arrived at the shop claiming to have a rare 1841 edition of the Book of Mormon. Romney appraised it at roughly $40,000, and after negotiation, Harrison purchased it for a fraction of the seller's original asking price. Not long after the episode aired, persistent rumors began circulating that the book had actually been stolen from a university library collection in Utah, and that federal investigators had subsequently taken interest in how a stolen historical artifact made it onto national television without raising red flags. No formal charges were ever publicly filed, and Romney herself was never accused of wrongdoing in any official capacity. Still, the whispers persisted across fan forums and online discussion boards, fueled by the broader context of real federal cases involving stolen rare books and documents throughout that era, including well-documented incidents involving stolen maps and rare manuscripts recovered by federal authorities in prior years. Whether or not agents ever formally questioned her, the timing of what happened next did little to quiet the speculation. In January 2015, Romney appeared in what would become her final regular episode of Pawn Stars, appraising an 18th-century pirate-themed book. There was no on-screen farewell, no acknowledgement that she was leaving, and no explanation offered by the network. She simply stopped appearing, and the silence surrounding her departure became almost as notable as her presence had been. What followed was a career shift that suggested her path had never truly been about television in the first place. In 2016, Romney relocated to Philadelphia to take on a senior directorial role back at Bowman Rare Books, overseeing acquisitions and cataloging work for institutional collections. That same year she married J.P. Romney, a fellow writer and historical researcher with a distant family connection to the Romney political dynasty, including ties to Mitt Romney and former Michigan Governor George Romney. Despite the name recognition this connection carried, Rebecca has consistently made clear in interviews that she has never actually met Mitt Romney, and that her career in rare books had nothing to do with political proximity. In 2017, the couple co-authored Printer's Error, Irreverent Stories from Book History, a collection of essays exploring forgotten and strange episodes in the history of printing, from forged Galileo manuscripts to the disputed mysteries surrounding the Gutenberg Bible itself. The book was well received and gave Romney a credibility that extended well beyond her reality television appearances. By 2023, however, her marriage to JP had ended, closing a chapter that had briefly intertwined her professional identity with a well-known American politi. Cal's surname. Rather than fading from the field after leaving Pawn Stars, Romney doubled down on it. In 2019, she co-founded Type Punch Matrix, a rare book firm based in Silver Spring, Maryland, alongside business partner Brian Cassidy. The company quickly built a reputation for handling extraordinarily valuable material, including Shakespeare folios and fragments connected to the Gutenberg Bible, while positioning itself as a disruptive presence in a field historically dominated by older, more conservative dealers. That same spirit of challenging convention had already surfaced in 2017, when Romney and fellow dealer Heather O'Donnell created the Honey and Wax Book Collecting Prize, an annual award recognizing young women under 30 for original and meaningful personal book collections, regardless of monetary value. The prize, backed by respected names in the rare book and auction world, was designed to address a pattern Romney had noticed firsthand: women who collected books passionately but rarely identified themselves as collectors in a field that had long overlooked them. That same instinct to correct historical blind spots eventually became the foundation of her most personally significant project. In February 2025, Romney published Jane Austen's Bookshelf, a book that examined the female novelists who directly influenced Austen's writing but were subsequently erased from the literary canon, including Frances Burney, Anne Radcliffe, and Charlotte Smith. Romney's research revealed a striking imbalance in literary survival rates, noting that a far smaller percentage of 18th-century novels written by women survived into the present compared to those written by men. The book received praise from major outlets for its sharp, evidence-driven approach, and it sold tens of thousands of copies within weeks of release. Romney has said candidly that she herself had never encountered most of these authors during her own education or her years as a professional book dealer, a realization that pushed her to spend nearly a decade personally tracking down original editions of their work through auctions and private estates. Her standing within the rare book world eventually earned her an invitation to speak at the Grolier Club in New York, one of the oldest and most exclusive bibliophile societies in the country, where membership is limited to a small circle of respected collectors and scholars. She has also become a fixture at the antiquarian book seminars, training the next generation of dealers and speaking openly about the field's uncomfortable history of forgery, including the well-documented Thomas J. Wise scandal of the early 20th century. In more recent years, Type Punch Matrix has expanded into technology-driven authentication work, exploring tools capable of verifying provenance and detecting forgeries with a level of precision the field has never had access to before, work that grew directly out of the fraud cases she first began writing about years earlier. What makes Rebecca Romney's story genuinely remarkable is not simply that she survived a brush with controversy on a popular television show, but that she used the quiet, uncertain years afterward to build something far more lasting than a recurring television role. She turned a chance job application into genuine scholarly authority, and she turned her own gaps in education into a mission to recover voices literary history had quietly discarded. The pawn shop introduced the world to her name, but it was the years after the cameras stopped rolling that revealed who she actually was, a researcher determined to make sure the past is remembered honestly, even when that means questioning the very institutions that once trained her.